My channel has grown a lot in the past month, and I'm thankful for that. And I thank you for joining me here, for putting your trust in me. One of the things I like to do here is cover more practical concerns about the carnivore diet, as well as some of the nonpartisan policy and power issues we run into that very few carnivore commentators are willing to touch. And I don't make partisan remarks here, so don't worry about that if you're new, but food news is something we should be concerned with, whether it comes from some member of the socio-political elite who wants to dictate how the rest of us eat, or more concrete, everyday, immediate concerns like the price for food. We're being told now, amazingly, that beef prices are actually going down, and the reporting makes it sound like that's going to be the norm going forward until you actually read the stories that are being reported and you factor in other news stories about the price of beef. Is the price of beef really going down in a meaningful way? Will it last? Let's take a look at the story. One example of this comes from the Los Angeles local Fox News affiliate, which gives us this headline: Steak prices decline on waning demand. There's a lot of versions of this same story floating around out there, all promoting the idea that price for meat is going down due to lowering demand due to economic conditions. Now, keep in mind that this conflicts with reports that just a few weeks ago said literally the opposite, that demand for beef was going up internationally, even pricier cuts, because people are going out to eat less and learning how to cook nicer meals at home due to the economy. Turns out almost anybody can cook if they actually, take some time to figure out how. From the article, quote, "The price of steak fell slightly last month, driven by a drop in demand for consumers as Americans shift their protein preferences to lower-priced options, while persistent inflation continues to squeeze their grocery budgets. Labor Department data show the price of uncooked steak fell 1.5% on an annualized basis in July and was down 1% from June, while the price of more budget-friendly ground beef continued to soar, up 9.7% from a year ago. According to the Wall Street Journal, the price of ribeye and beef loin fell nearly 10% compared to the year before in the 4 weeks leading up to August 7th, and brisket dropped a whopping 18%. Although the consumer price index eased to 8.5% in July from the year before, food at home prices surged 13.1%, which is the highest increase since March 1979. The decline in prices for higher-end beef cuts shows a continued trend, in consumers increasingly making trade-offs at the grocery store to escape sky-high inflation." End quote. I see that last sentence in some version or another in my comments section all the time, actually. People really are making those trade-offs or stocking up during these wonderful summer months where meat prices are down on nicer cuts of steak. That's why I occasionally make grocery haul videos to show you how to save money at the store. But do you see the conflicting information? People are buying cheaper cuts like ground beef, despite ground beef being 10% higher in price than a year ago. That still makes ground beef cheaper than ribeye for the most part, but the trade-off may not be worth it for some of us, especially once potentially higher levels of histamines in ground beef are accounted for. At least that trade-off might not be worth it for those of us who are carnivores and care or even know about histamine issues, and I have a video in the works about that, probably early September. But food prices are a real concern right now, even if the cost of beef appears to be going down. People are cheering for the new beef processing centers that are opening in the U.S., and for good reason. And the news of massive hiring that sector of the economy is doing, also for good reason, which should help to defray some of the costs of beef. But there's more to all of this than that. You've probably heard of the common phrase, burying the lead. It's a term from the world of print newspapers, and it applies to modern online news, and the practice journalists often have of burying the real story far down into the article. So from that same article, pretty far down in it, here's the real deal. The price drop is temporary. Quote, "The U.S. Department of Agriculture warned last month that widespread drought has caused cattle producers to send more animals to slaughter. That influx of supply is helping to keep beef prices at bay. But industry insiders told Fox Business that the dwindling herds mean higher prices in the future. National Cattlemen's Beef Association CEO Colin Woodall said at the time, "We do expect the prices to continue upwards, but everybody has to remember that it's not cattle producers setting that price, end quote. Don't blame your local rancher for the price of beef, please. They're struggling right now, too. But his statement there hints at what my own cattle industry sources have warned me of, increasing beef prices coming later in the year. They told me to expect them starting in the fall, when that same article here later on warns that turkey prices will be going up just in time for Thanksgiving. If you have room in your freezer for a turkey now, then now may be the time to buy one if you plan to have turkey as part of a carnivore Thanksgiving this year. My own thought is that if you're like most people and are buying your meat from the grocery store and not from a rancher directly like I do and a lot of other people do, then you should do your due diligence and take advantage of the meat situation now. Stock up. It's the best way to weather any storm and be prepared for actual literal storms. That way, if you get snowed in the winter, you still have your meat. Now, in my area, I see ribeye on sale right now for about $7 a pound or even less. That probably isn't going to last, especially since the price drops aren't really due to decreased demand per se, but increase of the amount of beef on the market. Widespread drought and fertilizer shortages related to that ongoing conflict overseas, along with increased prices for diesel fuel, are the main cause of long lines being seen for cattle processing. Cattlemen are taking their cattle to be processed in larger numbers than usual, leading to long lines at processing centers that we haven't really seen before. This glut of processing demand has led to various meat processing centers around the country hiring a lot of new hands to help process all those cows. And if I was one of the people they'd hired, I would be kind of worried about what that means in the future because of this. It's all temporary. Cows processed early won't be around to be processed later, meaning that at the very best, the backstock of meat that the U.S. used to have before the events of 2020 disrupted everything may be restored. But on the flip side of that, we're likely facing price hikes of 20% or more in 2023. That's what my industry insiders tell me. Fewer cows now means less beef to go around in the stores later. And as I've reported numerous times in the past, there's also an increasing demand for beef more broadly in the U.S. and abroad. And America is exporting more beef than ever before. So stock up on your beef now. It's a good idea to do anyway. The summer season is notoriously the best time of year to buy steaks at a good price because guess what you do in summer? You grill. That's just what Americans do. But I'm curious, how do you longer-term carnivores do Thanksgiving, assuming you're in America or Canada, and have the holiday to begin with? Or perhaps you come from a religious tradition that is a major holiday that focuses on poultry, like the famous St. Martin's Day goose. How do you do those holidays carnivore? Some people don't do poultry at all on this diet, so I'm curious about alternatives you may do. For me and my family, I plan to make a turkey, and it's one turkey we'll probably have in the course of the year, and the usual pork ribs that have kind of become my family tradition for Thanksgiving. But I also will do some kind of beef dish as well. When I eat non-beef, I try to pair it with ruminants most of the time. Maybe I'll do a chopped brisket that day, I don't know. But let me know your plans because I'm curious. Since that time of year is quickly approaching, and let me know how prices do you think are going to impact that? And let me know if you're concerned at all about the projected price increases for beef and the conflicting news reports on this. And make sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't. It does help and is greatly appreciated. I'm Anthony Stine, and thanks for watching today.